stop waffling. I want to know the answer to my question. You are releasing prisoners early in the first week of a Labour government. How's that going to make us more secure? So the Prime Minister is going to tell NATO allies today that they cannot waive it in the face of Russian aggression.
He was speaking after talks with President Biden on the first full day of the NATO summit in Washington. And we're joined now by the Security Minister, Dan Jarvis. Good to speak to you this morning.
Good morning.
You've got a lot on your plate, of course, new-ish to the job, still new after a week. And, of course, there's a huge pressure on when the defence budget and when the amounts of money are going to be delivered, because that impacts all the conversations at NATO, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The first duty of any government is national security, to keep the public safe. And that's why the Prime Minister and our Defence Secretary, John Healey, have made a commitment to conduct a defence review. That will be initiated very quickly. That's an important process because it gives us the opportunity to look carefully at the nature of the threats that we face at a country and make sure that we match appropriate capabilities and then resource to it. I think it is fair to say that the world feels a very difficult and dangerous place at the moment, probably more so than at any point since the Second World War. So it is incredibly important that we look at the specific capabilities of our armed forces, but also look more generally at the work done by our police and by other agencies across government to keep the public safe. And that will be my priority, and that work has already begun.
So Keir Starmer, our new Prime Minister, pledging to the UK will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. What does resolution, what does the end of the situation with Ukraine, peace, look like?
Well, we have to work towards a situation where Ukraine are able to defend themselves against Putin's illegal aggression. We should be under no illusion that our own national security is on the line here. And that's why the Prime Minister, working with allies in NATO, and our commitment to NATO is absolutely unshakable. NATO is the most successful military alliance in history, and it is fundamental to our national security.
I suppose, I understand, of course, you're working to them to defend themselves. I mean, what is the vision? What is the timescale? What will be the box ticked for Keir Starmer and for you?
Well, just a few days into the new government, I think the most important thing is being able to demonstrate our strong commitment to continue to work with our partners to support Ukraine. The illegal invasion by Russia is a matter of huge significance, not just for Europe, but for the wider world. And it is absolutely fundamental that we stand shoulder to shoulder with our allies in NATO, and particularly with the United States, with whom we have a special relationship, to say to Ukraine that we are there to support them, we are there to provide the material that they need in order to defend themselves. And of course, that is in their short and long-term interest, but it's also in our own. The consequences of further advancement by Russia will be felt not just in Ukraine, but by the whole of the rest of the world. And that is why this is a vital moment, and we need to work with our partners to ensure Ukraine has the support that it needs.
Dan Jarvis, you're Minister for Security. That means here in the UK as well. You've just been re-elected in Barnsley Central. On Friday, you're in your constituency. Somebody comes up to you and says, I voted for you a week ago, and I read in the newspapers the first thing a Labour government is going to do is release prisoners early from our prisons. And they say to you, how's that going to make us more secure? What do you say to them?
Well, the first thing I'd say to you, Ed, is Barnsley North now. We've moved on from Barnsley Central. But when that conversation does happen on Friday, the first thing that I will say to that particular constituent is that we take our national security incredibly important. It is the first duty of any government. And we've got a Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, who is working tirelessly with Cabinet colleagues to make sure that the public are kept safe.
But your constituent says, stop waffling. Stop waffling. I want to know the answer to my question. You are releasing prisoners early in the first week of a Labour government. How's that going to make us more secure?
And that was the point I was precisely making, because of the wider context around national security. But turning to your point specifically about prisoner release, we've inherited a situation where our prisons are quite literally in crisis. And we will work across government with colleagues in the Ministry of Justice, Shabana Mahmood, the Secretary of State, to put in place a plan that seeks to relieve some of that immediate pressure on our prisons. But we will do so based on a guiding principle of public safety. Nobody should be released from prison who we determine will be a risk or a threat to the public. That is the guiding principle. We have to keep the public safe, and this new government will do everything that we possibly can to make sure that the public are protected. But we shouldn't pretend that there won't be difficult decisions to make. We've inherited a very challenging legacy from the previous government. There has not been enough support or investment in the prison estate. Shabana Mahmood is looking very, very carefully at that, and I know that she will take decisions based on the principle that I've just outlined to you, that the public have to be kept safe. And that is what I say to my constituent, and that's what I'll say to anybody who asks me about it.
Dan Jarvis, thank you very much. I wonder if Mr Jarvis's constituents are going to be reassured.
Well, we'll go back to him, won't we, and see after those decisions have been made.